Very good evening, everyone. So, today I'll be presenting a case which is actually very short and straightforward, but then it raises certain questions which we face in our everyday OPDs. So, I wanted to highlight certain points regarding this. So, a 23-year-old girl presented with sudden onset severe stabbing headache and electric shock like sensation of left side of her head and face. She basically described it to be present in the left temporal region and also having electric shock like sensations in the whole of the left side of her face. And this was lasting for a few seconds. And according to her, it happened at least 20 times in 1 or 2 minutes, and then it resolved on its own. And after that, for the whole day, she did not have any such symptoms again. And then the next day again, she had the symptoms. And this was precipitated when she was having some spicy food, which had started the thing in the first place. And the next day, she had the similar uh, symptoms again. This was not associated with any eye watering, redness, nasal stuffiness, swelling, or any flushing or any changes in her left side of the face. It was not associated with any vomiting, visual blurring, photophobia, phonophobia, or the like. And she had two such attacks over 2 days, and then they had subsided on their own. But then she had had the similar food before and never had similar attacks. So she went to show to a neurologist. Now she was diagnosed as primary headache or trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia, and also a generalized anxiety disorder. At this time, I have not said, but the patient was very anxious when she came to me. This is outside. And she was started on oxcarbazepine twice daily and paroxetine. Now the headache decreased and she had a headache-free area interval of say 1 month. And then she became irregular with her medications, like generally happens. Okay, I'm feeling well, so I may or may not have my medication. And then again she started having such attacks. This time while eating any food which is hot, or sometimes on while she's having these attacks, if there is when she had any like stimulation of the part, then it would increase. But then a very clear cut history was very difficult to obtain. When I asked her, this was the only thing she said, that she was having electric shock like sensation, but it was lasting for a few seconds, and then it was happening multiple times. So say it is lasting for 1 or 2 minutes where she had 20, 30 of such attacks, and then she has a interval where she has no attacks, and again this is happening when she's taking food. So there is some trigger associated. So this time again she went to the same neurologist and there was an imaging done. And this was the imaging. So what we can see here is there are certain non-specific white matter changes which we can see present in the periventricular as well as the juxtacortical region here. And with this it is very difficult to say whether this is a headache associated change like we call the unidentified bright objects, or is it related to something else. These are the other. Yes, that's what headache related, that's what I was meaning, migraine. So the same changes which we can see here, and this is in the T1. Can't really make out. There's some hypo places, but not really that we can find any black holes here. Also in the brainstem area, very difficult because when the reporting, it was not mentioned that there was any changes. And also from here, it is very difficult to make out. This is a 1.5 Tesla MRI scan. I don't know if there was any change around this area. Difficult to say or comment because the resolution does not permit. And this was a angio done for the same. It was reported as changes associated with headache, non-specific white matter changes, or can be sequelae of demyelination. That was the report of the radiologist. And they did not mention anything about any neurovascular conflict. So at this point, when she had multiple attacks of the similar headache, and she had shown maybe 4 times to the neurologist, and she is taking oxcarbazepine, and it was actually subsided for a time when she was taking it regularly. But still, you know how they are not satisfied by showing one person, so they want multiple opinions. So now there were these questions when the patient came to me: is this trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia or is this trigeminal? I would like, I request the panelists to help me answer these questions. So is this trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia or trigeminal neuralgia from whatever history we have?
From the history, it is a classical history of trigeminal neuralgia. There is no autonomic feature shown. Trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia arises in the 27 years lady. And the other thing with the MRI, trigeminal neuralgia is an isolated entity. It may be idiopathic, it may be secondary to tumor, vascular compression, or multiple sclerosis, but it's a very rare in the multiple sclerosis, 6 or less than 6% of the cases. But typically up to this stage, it is trigeminal neuralgia, no doubt of it. But as the is a young, 27 years old, and as the MRI does exclude any HOL or any vascular compressions or any demyelinating display there is a in the pons is classical of changes in the multiple sclerosis of the pons trigeminal, the fifth nerve. There is a vesicular changes, that is a demarcation changes of tract of there is a spinal tract that is there should be some changes in the classical that is not present. So we have to diagnose this trigeminal neuralgia, maybe idiopathic, needs continuous follow-up or further evaluation time to time. Any opinion?
So I agree, sir. Because there are no autonomic symptoms, this was predominantly the B1 area.
Sir, she was describing whole of the face.
Whole of the face.
Yeah, so not really V1.
This was not triggerable.
Yes, sir. Triggerable when she's eating something, then that is happening.
Only spicy food.
Yes, sir. Apart from that, she never really gave any trigger history. And sometimes it was happening without trigger also in
Short
between.
lasting.
Very short lasting, sir. Few seconds and
Probably
then.
with this history, I think trigeminal neuralgia will be the first possibility. No, I don't think the MRI.
Stabbing headache?
I think this was on the face.
Yes, but not on isolated B1. So
It's not
unlikely.
isolated.
Unlikely.
Stabbing headache,
It's in the B1.
stabbing headache on the face is less often described. It's not a very known entity. So looks more like trigeminal neuralgia with the given history.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I did not show the film because the first one was not with contrast, and they had done another MRI which was reported. I had the report but not the film, and then they said there was no contrast enhancement. Also, I also had this question, see, these are non-specific white matter changes which we get in a lot of migraine patients as well. So, how do we differentiate that if this can be a multiple sclerosis or not?
So the lesions should be periventricular. They should abut the ventricle and abut the cortex. The migraine lesions, they don't abut the ventricle and the cortex. They are more subcortical. I think from what I can see from here, they look more like subcortical rather than juxtacortical and periventricular. Although one of the lesions you showed looks like
A bit. It's difficult to see from
yeah,
this, sir.
you will need a
Definitely.
special sequences like DIR.
Definitely, sir.
contrast
Contrast enhancement.
and black holes.
Yes, because for every patient with headache, we are not going to do a MRI spine. So, optic nerve, maybe we can see in this, but it's difficult to see. So now the patient has come to me. So I have revisited the history. Examination was essentially normal. I could not find any changes. So there is no history of any dimness of vision, fever, rash, joint pain. Now the headache is happening 200 times per day, similar way. And she is taking medications. But then again, I have doubts that she is taking it properly because from what she has presented to me, she was very anxious and seemed to be having a kind of a personality disorder, like too much anxiety. And for the past, there was some past history which she said that 2 years back there was some weakness of the right hand which improved in few days, and this has happened twice to her. Don't know how much of it weightage should be given, but this was one of the histories. There's no family history of migraine or headaches, and the symptoms are increasing when the weather is changing or it is hot, and when the patient is stressed. So at this point of time, taking into consideration there is some history suggestive of some attack previously, I opt for a further imaging with contrast and also included a spinal cord imaging. So this was a 3 Tesla MRI imaging, and this showed the similar type of image like we saw previously. Here, although in the T1 sequence we can see that the kind of it is more hypo than the one which we see before. So apart from that,
That probably is a point.
that's what like black hole kind of, yeah. That is why I showed, yeah. That is, yeah, exactly. So that was one of the points which I found. Also, the orientation looks a bit like Dawson finger kind, when we can see in the aspect. And we also did a CISS sequence, and there we could not find any neurovascular conflict. Now I did the spine as well with contrast. Oh, the brain contrast did not show any enhancement, so I have not shown it. The spine, the cervical spine, we can see there is a contrast enhancing lesion. Here we can see, in which in the axial also it is seen. Also, the dorsal spine had a contrast enhancing lesion, which was eccentrically placed.
The cervical spine, the
Cervic-
concentric, it was like in the central part.
Yeah, some of it like from here we can see centric, but maybe because how I've taken the image, but mostly towards the dorsal end it was there, but not really eccentric as we suspect. And the dorsal spine, we had a lesion which was a bit eccentric and was contrast enhancing, as reported by the radiologist. So I had taken it. So by this time, brain stems are another, again there was no lesion, and the CISS sequence also did not show any neurovascular conflict. Since there was no lesion, I have not shown the picture. So by this time, patient has developed increased frequency, and there is also a new symptom of paresthesia of the left side of the body. So we had done an MRI, it is showing a cervical and a dorsal change, so probably correlating with it. So now the patient has rushed to the emergency because the symptoms are not getting controlled. I have increased the dose of the symptomatic medications and have admitted for further evaluation. And I have done the general test which has to be done to rule out for demyelination and all. So there was vitamin D deficiency. The CSF test was done, which was essentially normal, but the OCB was positive and the IgG index was positive in this case. So after this, what I can say, it is satisfying the criteria for McDonald's criteria. So I have diagnosed this patient as a case of relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. But again, this trigeminal neuralgia, is it a secondary trigeminalgia or is it idiopathic? Is still in doubt because we did not find any plaque in the pons, and also there was no neurovascular conflict. So this was a doubt, but considering the presence of multiple sclerosis and the age is very less, I am thinking might be a secondary trigeminal neuralgia. Gave the patient pulse of methylprednisolone, and because there were new features and they were contrast enhancing, and have started her on a disease modifying therapy, DMF, because other disease modifying therapies like teriflunomide or interferons or rituximab for that matter are known to exacerbate headaches. So I've started her on this, and we are continuing with the symptomatic treatment which had to be increased because it's not getting controlled, and now she's in follow-up. So this was the case, which is like straightforward, but when the patient is coming to you, it is very difficult to understand because, sir, what I have seen is the disease modifying therapy or steroid will not help with trigeminal neuralgia. So we have to go on continuing the symptomatic therapy which we give, and the doses have to be increased. So I wanted to get your opinion regarding the same and the experience regarding it.
In case of multiple sclerosis, bilateral trigeminal neuralgia in a young patient, imaging excludes any tumor or muscular compression. That will be more common. One has to be carefully pull out the patient of the after MRI, periodic MRI, whether the lesions are developed or not. Because it is not included into the criteria of trigeminal neuralgia multiple sclerosis, but it can occur. And in this case, as there is, one has to be look out the trigeminal root entry zone. There, if there will be the demyelination, that should be it should be evaluated by the radiologist to see the
So I actually, we did that and talked to the radiologist, but he's of the opinion that he cannot find any lesions there. And I have also talked to some experts, and they've been saying that it is very difficult to find these plaques, which sometimes they can be very small. So it is very difficult to diagnose with the help of the current MRI situations which we have.
Actually, I had a similar case.
Yes, sir.
She had trigeminal neuralgia.
Hmm.
Ultimately, she was diagnosed with MS. What happened was 3 MRIs were done, and in one of the MRI, which was there at one center, they took very thin coronal cuts, and they found that plaque. That was the only one MRI which showed a plaque. Otherwise, we repeated MRI several times. There were no plaques. So probably, if you take thin coronal cuts, then maybe you can get a small plaque.
So because the first MRI, which was 1.5 Tesla, I had a feeling there might be a plaque, but the radiologist, did not give any review. So,
There were cuts, and in that case, I found that there was just one coronal cut which showed a plaque. Otherwise, and second thing is sometimes there may be a plaque initially, and then when the attack started, and later on that becomes fades off and you don't see it.
yes. So trigeminal neuralgia associated with multiple sclerosis, it's present in 1.9 to 4.9% of the cases. So it is quite rare to suffer from this neuropathic pain, and to be the first presentation is even rarer. And it is conversely, multiple sclerosis is detected in 2 to 14% of the patients with trigeminal neuralgia. So either way, not very common. But we have to keep in mind that it occurs. So trigeminal neuralgia secondary to MS is like classical or idiopathic only. The paroxysmal attacks last from a fraction of a second to 2 minutes, are typically evoked by stimulating cutaneous or mucosal trigeminal territories. So patient may also report of spontaneous attacks, and the frequency of pain attacks may range from 1 to over 50 a day. There is a lack of general consensus about the occurrence of remission periods in trigeminal neuralgia secondary to multiple sclerosis. Some patients with trigeminal neuralgia secondary to MS, as well as patients with classical or idiopathic, suffer from concomitant, continuous, dull, boring, or tingling pain between the paroxysms. This was not there in this case, but it may occur in cases. And the distribution of the continuous pain coincides with that of the paroxysmal pain, and fluctuation in the intensity as well as periods of remission and recurrence parallel these of the same. So paroxysmal pain. And then it is more common in females. It is more common on the right side. We saw in our patient it is present in the left side, but it's more common in the right side. And can be bilateral in 18% of the cases. So a younger age and trigeminal sensory deficits are associated with increased risk of secondary trigeminal neuralgia and should be considered useful for distinguishing secondary trigeminal from classical trigeminal. So the pathophysiology is basically, in case of MS, is a pontine demyelinating plaque, and which is in the area which is centered in the ventrolateral pons between the trigeminal root entry zone and the trigeminal nuclei, that is along the intrapontine trigeminal primary afferents. So these are the places where in the trigeminal root entry zone there is a change from the peripheral Schwann cells to the change to the oligodendrocytes which are forming the myelin. So this area is much more prone to kind of demyelination, compression, and causing ectopic generations and ephaptic transmissions, which are actually considered to be the cause for the trigeminal neuralgia. And a prospective clinical and neuroimaging study in the patients with MS revealed a significant association between neurovascular compression, trigeminal neuralgia secondary to MS. So these patients have both the things. They have pontine plaques as well as they have the neurovascular conflict at the root entry zone. So both can happen together, and this is called a double crush mechanism. So here in the MRI, so how we can diagnose this, mostly we go for the MRI, where in these cases we can see 3 images which are showing the presence of the double crush. and there is presence of time of flight MR angioscan, which is showing with the arrow. You can see there's presence of the demyelinating plaque as well as an artery there. And the reconstructive images of the T2 wave CISS sequence also showing a distortion in the artery and neurovascular conflict. Apart from MRI, we can go for the blink reflex, which helps us to differentiate between the idiopathic and the secondary, because it is more often than not prolonged in secondary compared to the idiopathic ones, which we could not do in my case because it was not available. And the treatment is mostly pharmacological, although there is poor tolerability in MS patients and there's a wide range of adverse effects which may mimic attack or symptom worsening. So it is difficult to treat. And only in those cases where they are resistant to drugs, we may offer surgical management, and which is similar to those in case of either primary or idiopathic cases. So take-home messages: trigeminal neuralgia can be a rare first presentation of multiple sclerosis. Younger age, associated sensory deficits, and imaging abnormalities should prompt the clinician to look for MS. May overlap with idiopathic or classical trigeminal neuralgia. Treatment is mainly pharmacological, and the role of surgery is uncertain and may be tried in drug refractory cases. Thank you for patient listening.
Thank you, Shruti, for an excellent case presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the nice case. Now I would like to request Kaushik Sesha to present the case.